It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Smooth and Savvy is joined by some of the hottest talent in the entertainment industry, from musicians to authors and all those in between, along with our own Periscope girl. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Mr. Smooth and Savvy himself, Douglas Coleman.
Howdy-o, hey, ha, ha, ha. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? Nice to be back. I just took a couple of weeks off and had some West and Wee-waxation, and I feel great and ready to do the show once again. So it's always nice to go on vacation, but it is always nice to come home too. Something about sleeping in your own bed. It just is very comforting. And I missed everyone here, and I think it was a good vacation, but it's nice to be home. So anyways, we've got some great guests coming up in the next month. We've got Nicole Delacroix, who is an author who wrote a book called Sexual Confessions. It was something that she created based on surveys she did online, and it's quite interesting. We've also got an incredible band coming up from Malta called Airport Impressions, and these guys are a fantastic band, great music. I'm sure you're going to love them. Our guest today, however, is a singer-songwriter from Norwich, UK, whose name is Shaun C. Bryant, who is also a fantastic musician, has a few great songs that we're going to play today, as well as a rather in-depth interview. So we will get to Shaun after these commercial messages. Bondi Guest House in Jomtien Beach, Pattaya, Thailand. And their guest house offers beachfront accommodations with all rooms having sea views. Some rooms have balconies overlooking the sea as well. The Jomtien nightlife is within an easy stroll, and the beach is right outside your door. The attractions of Pattaya City nightlife are also just a few minutes ride away. Food is available 24 hours and offer a selection of European and Thai food. The owners, Colin and Malcolm, look forward to welcoming you to the Bondi. For more information, email Colin at bondipattaya, BONDIPATTAYA, at yahoo.co.uk. And if you do contact them, please mention that you heard about it on the Douglas Coleman Show.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps from the UK, record producer, engineer. You might have heard of me. I've worked with artists from Elton John to Led Zeppelin to Bad Company, Twisted Sister, Robbie Williams, Oasis, many great bands and artists in the past and the present and hopefully in the future. But you can work with me as well. You know, all you got to do is get in touch with me on eppsmusicproductions.com. That's EWPSproductionsmusic.com. And I can help you with your productions and with your recordings. A lot of people do home recordings now, which you can only take so far. Maybe they need a bit of professional help. So get in touch with me and we can sort it out. And thanks for Douglas Coleman for giving me this spot. Thanks a lot. Cheers, bye.
Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. See? Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Wrong hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, my guest today is a singer-songwriter from the UK. His name is Shaun C. Bryant. Shaun is already becoming an established artist, quickly gaining popularity, and he is continuing to take the world by storm. If you haven't heard his music yet, where the hell have you been? Songs from his debut album, 3 a.m. in the Morning, have been heard on radio stations around the world, showcasing his rocky acoustic style, inviting vocals and expressive lyrics that have captured the hearts of his many fans. Shaun is currently writing and recording his next album, Midnight in Paris, with his new producer and co-writer Adam Horrell of Cowbell Recording. He is also building an online community, SCB Confidential, by way of crowdfunding on his website. Please welcome Shaun C. Bryant. Hi, Shaun. How are you?
Hi, Douglas. I'm good.
Good. Thank you for coming on the show. Can you give everybody a little bit of background about yourself? Your bio doesn't really tell us what you've been doing since creation to this point in your life. So if you could just give us a little bit of a background on yourself.
No worries at all. That's absolutely fine. I kind of fell into music a little bit late. 36 years old, to be exact. And that was 10 years ago, strangely enough, nearly 10 years ago to the day. And basically, I was going through a pretty messy divorce, bought a guitar, decided to try and learn how to use it. And I'm now currently recording my second album, weirdly enough. So it's kind of jumped around one hell of a lot. Kind of fell into it, as I said, at a later age and realized that, one, I could sing, which was nice to know. And with a little bit of work, I was able to crank out some nice tunes on the guitar, started writing my own material. Primarily inspired by a lot of sort of Bon Jovi, Springsteen, that kind of stuff. There's a bit of Oasis in there, even a bit of Bowie in places as well. God rest his soul.
Yeah.
That was a rather bad loss recently.
Yeah,
There's been loads of people gone recently. And that's kind of how it all happened. And because of that, 3 a.m. in the morning, the album was released. That was June 2012. And we're now very nearly on the cusp of having the second album, Midnight in Paris, out there. We're going to release an EP in the next few weeks, which will have a slightly humorous title based on the Midnight in Paris title, but I'm not going to give the game away just yet. But we've got a lot of stuff going on. I had a meeting with my producer just after Christmas, and we've got a lot of things happening right now. Some of it, I've been in touch with some people that I never ever thought I would dreamed of speaking to, and that's a really nice thing. And one of the particular tracks that we're going to release is a cover version of a very well-known song. And the band that originally released it, their management kindly got in touch with me recently and kind of opened up the doors and released us on one of these tracks. So it's going to be fun. I've already done one cover version, which is How Long Will I Love You, originally by the Waterboys and Mike Scott. And Mike Scott kindly allowed me, he gave me permission to cover that song. It's got a lot of personal meaning, that song. It's primarily for my kids who've been through the mill quite a bit in the last couple of years. And it just means the world to me that they've got that song as a legacy of my music for them, really.
Now, you said you started in music at 36. Were you musical as a kid, or did it just sort of hit you in the face one morning?
It kind of hit me in the face one morning, would you believe it? I did a little bit of singing at school. I was in the choir at school and things like that. Did a few drama productions, again, singing. So I had the ability to control my voice reasonably well. But playing the guitar and stuff, if somebody had said to me, I don't know, 25 years ago that I'd be up on stage with a guitar singing, I was also in a covers band for a little while, singing songs like You Give Love a Bad Name by Bon Jovi, for example. If somebody had said to me 25 years ago that's what I'd be doing now, I would have just laughed. And it's funny how the changes in your life can actually change what you do. And I'm absolutely blessed for the path that I've ended up on, and I love it. The music is under my skin, it's in my blood, it's never going to go away. I just enjoy creating the music for other people to listen to. It's not about the money. Well, what money exactly?
Well,
and yeah. It's just about creating. I love the creative process, and my only regret is that I wished I'd done it earlier, because I enjoy the process so much.
Well, what were you doing before music hit you in the face?
I'm still doing it now. I still have the day job. I run my own computer consultancy. I have done for the last 15 years freelance by myself. Before that, I was in the engineering industry, again, working with the computers as well. So, and that's the day job, and that's what pays for the studio time and the guitars and the microphones and the external sound cards and everything else that I tinker with here in the studio at home.
Well, it's an interesting story because most of the musicians that I interview have been playing music since they were a kid, and it's just something that's been a part of them for their entire life. where the music took them varies from person to person, but you're the first one who essentially did nothing in music until rather later in your life, and I find that to be rather interesting. You don't know what inspired it all of a sudden. It just sort of...
It was, like I said, I was going through a pretty tough divorce at the time, and just kind of needed an outlet. For anybody who's been divorced, I don't know if you have, Douglas, but
no.
you have moments where you kind of wonder where your life is going to go next. And I was at that point, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy a guitar. It wasn't an expensive one. I still own it. It's a Hohner Countryman, and it's a lovely blue Grand Auditorium acoustic, and it still has a lovely sound. And it cost me, I think, about 70 pounds, UK pounds.
Okay.
One of those sort of eBay kind of Amazon type purchases, and just kind of fell in love with messing around with chords. And then I discovered things like chord progressions and majors and minors and fifths and ninths, and you suddenly realize there's this entire world out there that you've never experienced before. And it just kind of sucked me in, a bit like, you know, Alice down the rabbit hole kind of thing. And I've just never came out since.
Well, it's quite a fascinating story. Who were you listening to as a kid? What kind of music were you listening to?
Oh, wow. Do you know what? You've asked me a really good question there. Only the other night I was going through my vinyl, because we've recently moved house.
Oh, I remember.
I've got a load of
vinyl.
old record cases knocking around. And I was looking at all the stuff that I used to listen to when I was much younger, and it's pretty eclectic. We've got things in there ranging from Neil Diamond to Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Wow.
And there's a lot of Bon Jovi, a lot of Whitesnake. As a kid, I kind of progressed from the pop rock Frankie Goes to Hollywood kind of stuff into that new wave of British heavy metal, people like Def Leppard and those kind of bands. And then the hair got grown really long, and then I started wearing the studded belts and the tight jeans and the high top sneakers and all that kind of thing. And I can always remember my first ever gig when I was 16 years old, which was at what was then the Hammersmith Odeon in London. And it was Bryan Adams on the Reckless tour, because Run to You was doing fantastically well in the UK charts at the time. And I've just stuck with rock ever since. It's always, everything I create has a rocky influence somewhere. It always has the guitars, the bass, the keyboards, the drums kind of thing.
Okay, well, I definitely want to play one of your songs now. And since you mentioned How Long Will I Love You, why don't we play that one?
Yeah, please do.
Is there any story behind it? Anything specific you want to mention?
Yeah, it's dedicated to my kids. My kids are wonderful. I have a fantastic relationship with them, and they went through some very tough times about 18 months ago. And I heard the song literally the day after I heard the awful news about everything that they went through. And I was in London working and just heard the song playing in a bar. It was the Ellie Goulding cover that she did for a British charity, Children in Need. And I thought, that's it. That's the song. And I looked up the original Waterboys version as well, and got in touch with Mike Scott via Twitter and just said, look, do you mind if I cover this? And he was like, yeah, fine, go for it. And it's just got a lot of sentimental meaning for me. It will always remind me of my children and all the other people that are special in my life as well.
Okay, great. Well, let's have a listen. This is Shaun C. Bryant, and How Long Will I Love You?
As long as the stars are above you, and longer if I can. How long will I need you? As long as the seasons need to follow their plan. How wash upon sand. How long will I want you? As long as you want me to, and longer by far. How long will I hold you? As long as your father told you, as long as you are. How long will I give to you? As long as I live through you. However long you say. How long will I love you? As long as the stars are above you, and longer if I may. How long will I love you? As long as the stars are above you.
Oh, very nice. That's a definite tearjerker song, yeah?
Yeah, and we've deliberately kind of made it that way. If you listen to the original Waterboys track, it's much folkier, and also it was in a Richard Curtis movie as well, called About Time, and there was a folky kind of version in there too. I can't remember the name of the guy that sang that version though. But yeah, it's a very special song, and lyrically, I find it beautiful. And vocally, it's very hard to sing. It might not sound like it, but it's a timing thing. The timing is very interesting on that song. And it took a while to get the vocals exactly where we wanted them to sit in line with the music. But Adam, who's my producer, he's just an absolute star. He makes me sound good. So as far as I'm concerned, he's a star. But yeah, he did some really good work on that, and he plays all the keyboards on that one as well. I hasten to add, he's a great keyboards player. So.
Well, that was my next question. I was going to ask who was playing on what. Now you're singing.
Yeah, that's
obviously.
Adam. Don't put me in front of a keyboard. I wouldn't know black from white, unfortunately.
Are you playing the guitar in that? I heard a little bit of a acoustic guitar.
Adam did most of the guitar on that track for me. I'm on the I play rhythm guitar on the track here. And there's a little bit of me in Midnight in Paris as well. What we try and do is there's a lot of mixing everything together and joining it up. And the good thing is Adam's in the studio all the time with his instruments. We work remotely because I'm in Norwich up in Norfolk most of the time in the UK, and Adam's in London. So we work remotely over the internet most of the time. So I will record a lot of like scratch demo vocals and acoustic tracks for him. Normally primarily to get the timing signature and also to get the arrangement sorted. And then he will start adding things like bass and drums and then bounce that back to me and say, what do you think? And it goes on like that, a cumulative process. And it's great. And what I love about Adam as well is he's quite a bit younger than me. He's in his 30s, and he's brought a really nice contemporary kind of feel to my music for this album. And what I'm really liking is that there's a lovely raw feel to my voice. which I didn't have on 3 a.m. in the morning. 3 a.m. in the morning was much, much more of a kind of classic rock reverby kind of sound, whereas Adams brought out a lot more of the rawness of my voice. And it's all beginning to come together really nicely at the moment. And we've got about 6 tracks that are written and waiting to be recorded for the album. So we should hopefully, fingers crossed, by about September time, have 12 tracks ready to go on the album.
Oh, that's super. Let's talk about the music industry for a few minutes, if you will. What, in your experience, what is a sort of a 2-part question? What are your loves of the music industry and what are your hates?
I can do that by way of mentioning 2 bands. Loves, Bon Jovi; hates, One Direction. But on a more serious note, what I love about the music industry is it's a lovely environment to meet wonderful, wonderful people. And I'm really lucky. I'm a member of BASCA, which is the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers and Authors. And I quite often go to a lot of their networking events and their big summer party that they have every year in London. And I've met some of the most amazing people. I've met some of the most amazing songwriters. I've met people that work on the Nashville TV show. I personally know the guy that wrote Slave to the Rhythm for Grace Jones. The guy that wrote Autumn Leaves on the War of the Worlds that Richard Burton narrated, and Forever Autumn was the song that he wrote, which was sung by Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues. And these are people that have made shed loads of money from the industry. But when you go and talk to them, they will talk to you as though you are their closest friend. And there's no airs and graces. And I've had some of the biggest laughs with these people at these events where we just have a giggle, we have a drink, we have a bite to eat. And you'll be sitting in a bar and someone like Gary Kemp from Spandau Ballet will just walk in and say hi and chat to you. And you're just standing there thinking, I used to listen to you all the time in the 80s on Top of the Pops on TV. And he's just chatting away, having a pint with me. And I don't want to sound like I'm name dropping. That's not what I'm trying to do. Is these people, they've been in the industry, they've been in the public eye, but they're all human beings. But most of them, I mean, I've had my experiences of a few, not nasty people, but just people that I don't really want to talk to again. But most of the people in this particular industry are extremely nice people. And that's what I love about the industry. The other side of the industry that I hate is the X Factor, American Idol, The Voice kind of side of the industry. And I don't hate it for giving the people an opportunity. I think if you're damn good and you go and do something like The Voice or the X Factor or American Idol, you will get through and you will get recognized and you will get a gig, so to speak, which is fine. But what I don't like is the way that they exploit that, and they exploit the backstory. And, I come from a tough background and I'm going to, get the old tears going for everybody. And that's the side of it I don't like, because all of us in this world have been through tough times. No matter what you do, who you are, what your occupation is, all of us have had tough things to deal with. Like I said, me and my kids have been through some tough times in the last 18 months to 2 years. And I mean, one of my most difficult moments was losing my grandfather in August of 2014. He was 99 years old. He was my hero, served at D-Day. And I carried his coffin and put him in the ground with my dad. And that was a tough time. And I did a reading at the church service and everything. And I found that really hard because it kind of made me think about my own mortality. I thought, that's a generation of my family gone. And my mum and my dad are now the top generation, and I'm the next generation down, and my kids are the next generation down. You get these music shows that exploit that and exploit that emotional level, and I don't like that. I want to see someone sing, and I want to see someone sing well, and I don't care where they come from. I don't care about their background. If they're good, they're good. And I will talk to them if they're good, and I'll listen to them if they're good, regardless of the backstory. And that's where people like Simon Cowell have made that backstory into an entertainment slot. And it kind of cheapens it, I think. I'd rather hear somebody sing about their experience with a song that they've written and put their heart out there on their sleeve that way, rather than have cameras shoved in their faces and go to their home, which is on a rough side of the street or whatever. That's what I don't like about the industry. Apart from that, I'm really enjoying the industry. Actually, it's I've made some great friends, and life is good. On a plus note, the industry I think is good. I think it's vibrant. The internet has helped tremendously. There's still the sharks out there. We've still got the issue with things like Spotify and Apple Music and all these other ones that are kicking in now as well. But hey, we're all out there trying to make a buck, and the ones that take on board the new tech, I think, will do very well for themselves.
I think the technology in the music industry is a double-edged sword.
Agreed.
What I don't like about it is it's cheapened the product. It's cheapened it to the point where people don't even want to buy music anymore. Before all of this, like you said, Spotify and Apple iTunes, people had to buy your music if they wanted to hear it. Now everybody wants it streamed for a penny or watched your YouTube video for free. On top of not compensating the artist, you've also cheapened the product to the point where music has become disposable. And people like you, I would suspect, who work hours and hours to put a song together, are in the same sort of boat as the person who just slaps something up on the computer, knocks it out, and puts it out there. It's both are considered music. Now, anybody who knows anything about music would listen to yours and say, oh, well, this is real. This is quality. The other one was just some sort of computer-generated noise. But to people who are not music aficionados, they might not know the difference. And I think it's sad.
I appreciate the comment about my music being real as well, and that's it is real and it is quality, and I must admit I work damn hard to make it sound good. I'll give you an indication of how hard I work to get my music out as compared to, like you say, somebody kind of just throwing it up on the internet. Me and Adam, we use a thing when we're doing the vocals called comping, and basically for every line of a song that I release, I have to sing that line 6 times. And what we do is we then, in essence, kind of take all the best bits out of those 6 lines each time and join them together. That's where the technology comes in, and that's where I think the technology is a massive, massive benefit, because you can get a fantastically great sounding album track from that. Now, I'm not saying that I can't sing live. I can sing live, and I have done, and I've performed at many gigs with the covers band that I used to be in. But what I don't like is the way, like you say, the technology, they can just put it all through Melodyne or Auto-Tune and kick out something, and people think that's great. And it took 5 minutes to knock it up.
Right.
And that's where, like you say, the music aficionados, they'll listen and they'll understand how good a track is. And I think the technology, like you say, it is a double-edged sword, very much so. I have to agree with you on that one. It really is. And basically, what we have to look at there is along the lines of, well, do we want the quality music where we do want to go out and buy it? Or do we want to have music as a commodity where we just download it? Now, funnily enough, I was talking to a young musician. I don't even think he's in his 20s yet. And he actually performed at one of the gigs that my covers band were at. And he ended up coming up on stage, and I think it was a Kings of Leon cover, something like that. And he sang with us, and he had an absolute blast. He loved it. And it was like an open mic night that we were doing at one of our local pubs in Norwich. And recently he started trying to record professionally and release some music and so on. And I saw a Facebook post from him saying, oh, I'm going to have a couple of tracks for you to download free soon. And I immediately sent him a private message and said, no, if you've got 2 tracks, sell one and give away the other one. And he was like, wow, I didn't think of that. And that shows that, like you say, that mentality now where people just download it. And they think, oh, I can just download it. That's what Spotify does. I mean, I'm guilty. I pay my premium Spotify membership every month. And the reason I do that is so that I can listen to music that I like. If I really like the music, I will then buy the CD. But people are different. And I mean, I've got a 14-year-old son who downloads everything. And he just doesn't get that. And I've tried to explain to him, that, hey, when you're downloading something, that's a product. That's like going out and buying your bus pass for school. It's a means to an end. And I have to agree with you. It is very much a double-edged sword. And I mean, I love the tech. I really do. And I mean, some of the stuff that me and Adam used to record, it's fantastic. Some of the plugins where you want a Steinway piano sound. Now, instead of having to go and find a studio with a Steinway in it, you can actually just put that through a keyboard, obviously an electronic one, and make sure that you've got that Steinway sound. You can even get the pedal noise if you want for a Steinway. And I think that's amazing, because that means that people like Adam and myself, we can create an amazing sound for the listener that sounds professional. And that's where I think the tech is great, because it makes people sound professional.
Well, I agree. Again, that statement is a double-edged sword as well, because some people who may
I agree with you. There's an argument the other way.
Yeah, because somebody who may not be a fantastic singer can sound like a fantastic singer simply because of the technology available. And I don't know if I think that's insulting to the people who actually can sing.
Oh, I have to agree with you. I was watching some of the comments on Facebook this evening, actually, about the Grammys and about Adele's performance. And I noticed on a number of the live performances, they had some major league technical issues this year. The Eagles tribute to Glenn Frey, for example, whoever tuned those guitars up needs to be shot. Yeah. I'm not joking. You know, that's a pretty high level tribute to a pretty amazing musician who's recently died, and the guitars weren't in tune.
Oh, that's bad.
Now, I know that Glenn Frey, bless his heart, you know, would have probably, whoever that guitar tech was, would have probably kicked him out of the park and said, "Don't come back."
I agree.
He was a fairly, straight guy, and I know a couple of guys that actually worked with him, and I think it was some of his solo stuff. And whilst he was great musician, he didn't mince his words. He didn't suffer fools gladly. But Adele, for example, somebody made the comment, "Hey, she struggled and she was way off," and she was. But I don't think it was her. I think the problem you had was there was, I think, some sort of either reverb or delay effect that was meant to be on her vocal, and it wasn't there. So she sounded like a little girl singing in a playground kind of thing, trying to get the vocal out there, and there was no push. I think Adele is a great artist. I think she's fantastic. I love the way she conducts herself as well.
Yes,
she calls a spade, and I've got a lot of respect for artists like that. I'd rather have an artist like that than one that believes all their own press all the time. Dare I say it, Kanye West is a prime example.
Well, no argument for me on that. I'm not a fan at all.
Don't get me started on that one, because I can talk for hours about that one.
Well, maybe we'll have another show and have you back, and we'll just call it the Dis Kanye Show, and we can just do that.
That
for
sounds
an
like a very
hour.
good idea. Yeah, I think that would be fun.
And get a couple of other people to call in, and get about 3 or 4 people all going. I would love it. That would be great.
That could be interesting.
Shaun, let's get to another song. Time is ticking away here. Which one do you want to do now, Here or Midnight in Paris?
Let's do something a bit bouncy. Let's go for Midnight in Paris, which is a nice rocky tune. It's got a bit of a Simple Plan kind of sound to it. So,
okay. Anything you want to tell us about it, or?
Yeah. Basically, the album's called Midnight in Paris, and this is the title track. The actual name of the track came about because I did a photo shoot in Paris, and I was outside the Louvre in November 2012, sitting on a wall with my guitar, having some pictures taken, and I have never been so damn cold. Basically, Dan, my photographer, I was kind of shouting at him, saying, "Dan, can you hurry up, please, because my butt is numb. I cannot feel it anymore." And he was going, "Oh, hang on, we need another angle like this." And this is like, funnily enough, it was nearly midnight in Paris at that particular point in time. And I turned to Dan, and I said, "Dan, it's nearly midnight in Paris, and I'm freezing. I want to go and get warm." And he said, "You know what? That Midnight in Paris bit kind of sounds like an album." And it went from there. And the funny bit about that story, just behind us in the square outside the Louvre in Paris, there was a couple getting their wedding pictures done. And this girl had a off-the-shoulder wedding dress and a pair of heels on, and that was it. And my God, how she did not get hypothermia, I do not know.
Well, okay. With that, here is Shaun C. Bryant and his cold butt and Midnight in Paris.
Lights in Paris tonight, watching the ladies go by. Voices in that sexy accent. Wow, wow, wow. My, oh my. There's a magic in this city. Gets under the skin of mine. It runs deep in my veins like a good French wine. That sexy way you smile, that sexy way you walk. Designer labels you love to wear, just love it when you talk. Midnight in Paris, in the dead of night. Je ne sais quoi, mon amour, I'm in your arms tonight. Midnight in Paris, in the dead of night. You have me heart and soul until the morning light. Walking slow along the sand, headlights light the way. My jacket keeps you warm tonight as we lose the Parisian day. On the metro heading home, guy singing with his guitar. Put a few coins in his cap, sure hope he goes far. Arms around my crazy French, her eyes gazing into mine. I want this to last forever, until the end of time. Midnight in Paris, in the dead of night. Je ne sais quoi, mon amour, I'm in your arms tonight. Midnight in Paris, in the dead of night. You have me heart and soul until the morning light. This city has my heart in its hands. Every time I visit, along the Seine to Notre Dame, je t'aime toujours. Midnight in Paris, in the dead of night. Je ne sais quoi, mon amour, I'm in your arms tonight. Midnight in Paris, in the dead of night. You have me heart and soul until the morning light.
Now that one, your voice sounds completely different than from the first song.
Yeah, it does. It's when I kind of put a bit of power into it, it does change. And I quite often get asked, why do I sing with an American accent? And because I obviously I sound reasonably British, I hope. And I think it's primarily because of my influences musically. Most of them are American. And I mean, obviously Bon Jovi being a prime example. And it just kind of fell in that way, and it's kind of stuck. And it's a fun song, and that was going to be much more acoustic, that song. And we started playing around with it and realized that we had a good track there, and we added some nice jangly guitars to it and had a bit of fun with it. And there's some nice playing around with the vocals there as well. My pidgin French comes through on a regular basis in that one.
The music has a bit of, you had mentioned Bryan Adams. It does have a bit of a Bryan Adams flavor, just slightly.
Yeah, it's got that kind of jangle that I love. When you get a good, what I call proper sort of, what I call Brit rock effect. We're talking bands like Oasis, for example. And you get that lovely sort of it's just I call it jangly. If I'm talking to Adam, I say, can we put some jangly guitars in there? And he kind of goes, yeah, and he knows exactly what I mean. When you get that nice effect on a guitar, I mean, there's so many effects pedals out there and so many devices now that you can put your guitars through. And I just like that nice rock sound, that nice full rock sound. And I'm a big Fender fan. I love the Strats and the Tellys and things like that. And I've also got a very good friend of mine who is a big Gibson fan, and he loves his Gibson Hummingbirds and his Les Pauls and so on. And we were talking about the different kind of sounds that they have, and it's quite interesting. I can normally pick out a Strat sound. A Strat is a very 80s guitar sound. And I mean, one of my favorite bands that used to use a lot of Strats was an Australian band called Icehouse. And would you believe it, they're actually touring this year as well. Not in the UK, but I'm not going to go all the way over to Australia just to see a gig though. That's expensive. But they kicked out some great tracks in the 80s, you know, tracks like Crazy and Electric Blue, Man of Colours and things like that. And I've loved them from afar for many years. And I think their biggest English hit was a track called Hey Little Girl many, many years ago. And I was at college back then, and that was when I began to love music, not to obviously play it and be involved in it, but to listen to it. And I began to pick out sounds, and it's like, oh yeah, those are Strats and so on. And I mean, I knew what a Strat and a Telly was before I was 20 years old, but I never had one or played one or anything like that. But now, just don't get me started on guitars. I've got 5 of them sitting here next to me. So, I mean, talking of guitars, I have a lovely endorsement with Hofner Guitars now, who make the Paul McCartney violin bass guitar, I hasten to add. Kathy and Nick over at Hofner are fantastic people. I got the gig with Hofner through a musician friend of mine who sadly passed away a year or so ago. And he was a great bass guitarist and loved the Hofner basses, and he just sort of passed my name on to Hofner. And we got talking. My Hofner Grand Auditorium is sitting right next to me at the moment, and that's my main workhorse now. I write most of my tracks on my Hofner now. I've still got obviously a couple of electrics and a couple of other acoustics, and they get utilized for different sounds as well. My 2 electrics are replica. It's a replica Strat and a replica Telly. They're not actual Fenders because they're reasonably expensive. So mine are not copies, but replicas, as they say, made by a reputable brand, here in the UK. But, you know, hey, you know, Fender, if you're listening, yeah, I'd love a couple of your guitars. Please let me know.
What's the difference between a copy and a replica?
A copy is one that kind of, you're talking 20, 30 pounds on eBay, Amazon kind of thing. They're the ones that you buy for your kids when they want to start messing around with a cheap little amp kind of thing. And a replica is, I mean, for example, if you look at the Epiphones, for example, they are replica Gibsons, but they're the cheaper working man's version of. My 2 are from it's a company in the UK called JHS, and they create replica guitars they're about half the price of a regular Fender, but they're mass produced. I mean, Fenders are obviously mass produced, but to a very high quality. But you can get a Mexico Fender, you can get a Japanese Fender, and so on. And they're made by different places, and that depends on the quality. You get the mass produced ones or you get the hand built ones. And I noticed Fender have just brought out a new Elite series with they've still got the single bar pickups instead of the humbuckers that you get on the Gibson. And they're completely noiseless. They're noiseless single bar pickups. And I'm thinking, now that does look nice, because one of the things the difference between a Fender and a Gibson is Gibson have the humbucker pickups, which means that there's no hum. That's why they're called humbuckers. And they're double wound. So they've got like a double pickup. So that means that you don't get any hum when you plug it into an amp or a PA, whereas Fenders, you've always got that little bit of hum. And I mean, I love that sound. I love that hum when you plug a Strat in. You know, it's a wonderful thing. But obviously the sound guys have got to get rid of that hum when you're playing live or recording or whatever. But it's what makes a Fender, and I love that sound. So it's a bit like, I suppose, Marmite or Vegemite. You either like it or you don't. And everybody's got their own personal preferences of guitars and things. So,
well, it's interesting that musicians pick up on particular sounds that really aren't a part of the music, but in a way that they are a part of the music. One of the ones that was something that I always liked back in the day was tape hiss. I always loved the sound of analog tape hiss. And yet in the early 80s, then the Dolby came out to try to reduce the tape hiss. And I always hated that.
I can always remember hitting the Dolby button on my mum and dad's stereo to switch the hiss off and on. I remember that well.
But I love the hiss. I wanted it in there because it just
makes it real, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It makes it real. It makes it warm. And it's the same with vinyl as well.
Exactly.
When you hear that needle just go onto the vinyl.
Right, for the first 2 seconds, it gives it the complete picture. It's like when you've made a painting and somebody removed the smell of the oil paint, it takes away from the painting. You've got to have that
it's very
smell
true.
As well.
You're quite right. It's all those. I mean, things like vinyl to me. I mean, vinyl to me is my youth. You know, every time a single came out of an artist or a band that I liked, I was straight down to my local Woolworths store to go and buy that particular either 45 or 12-inch extended mix single or whatever.
Right.
And I used to love that. I mean, a lot of I doubt I'll get arrested now for copyright theft. But when I was younger, I used to go and buy an album. And the first thing I did before I even actually played the album for myself was I always recorded it onto a really high quality chrome tape, because I had one of those yellow waterproof Sony Walkmans. And I used to always I used to buy the vinyl, record it to tape, and then the vinyl used to just get put away. And I used to just play the tape over and over again. And I think you're allowed to do that. I think if you own the vinyl, you're allowed to record it for personal use. I can't remember.
I think
there is a clause. Yes. There's a clause somewhere in the copyright.
The theory was
that was how I used to record it. So
was that if you recorded it onto tape, you lost a generation of quality, and therefore it was okay. When it got tricky was when digital came out, because you did not lose a generation of quality, and it was an identical copy. And that's right. Scared the copyright people, and still
there's
does.
a lot of things like that going on actually with the copyright side of things. I mean, one thing I will say to anybody who's listening, who's thinking about putting music up online for people to listen to, read the small print. I had an issue with a particular organization. I won't mention their names. Basically, somebody was putting the music up to be sold for me. And I was unaware that basically this guy made loads of money out of my songs. And because he controlled the account, he had the username and the password, he was able to log in and download the money to his PayPal account.
Oh, that's not.
And I mean, I will never know how much I lost. But the actual organization that, you know, had my music up online at that time, I contacted them directly and I said, look, this guy is loading my music up online and making money from it, and I'm not seeing a penny of it. And they said, well, sorry, you know, that he has control because he said that he is the owner of the music. And I said, but I'm the owner of the music. And they said, prove it. And I sent them everything that I could. And they said, sorry, that all that means is that you're the guy that recorded it. It doesn't tell us that you own it. And it was, I mean, I don't know how much money I lost on that one, but the company that were actually what they call the aggregator that were putting the music up online, they went under about a year later. So I haven't got a clue how much money I lost. And, well, let's just say that I don't speak to the guy that put the music up there anymore. So,
well, do you have a copyright organization in the UK like we do in the USA? We file.
Yeah,
with the
we
Library
do.
Of Congress.
All of my stuff is registered with what they call the PPL, which is a UK-based organization, and you can list all the session guys on there to make sure that they get royalties. Everything, it's got everything on it. So all of my stuff is up on PPL. Also for performing, I'm a member of the Performing Rights Society, the PRS. So any performances that I do, I can log in, put them into the system. And for example, if I do a radio show on, say, the BBC, which I did in 2010, I was on BBC Radio. And basically you just put the details of where you performed. They then go to the BBC and collect those royalties for you. Yeah, the PRS are working very hard with SoundCloud right now, because SoundCloud don't have an actual agreement with anybody. So all of these people that are playing music on SoundCloud, they're listening to some great artists and some great music. The artists aren't getting paid for that. So PRS in the UK are working with SoundCloud to say, hey, we need to agree a rate here, a bit like Spotify with the like penny a play kind of thing. And the PRS are working very hard to get that in place.
Let's get to your last song. It's called Here. You want to tell us anything about that?
Yeah, this is a very moody ballad, and it's the first track that I did with Adam, my producer. I changed producers when I started doing the second album. Basically, I sent Adam over a very scratch guitar acoustic arrangement with a very scratch vocal on top, and he sent me back a backing track that literally put the hairs on the back of my neck up on end. It was just like, wow. And when you hear the drums kick in at the beginning of this track, it sets the mood straight away. And it's a very melancholy track, and I deliberately wrote it that way. And it's basically about somebody who's missing somebody very badly, who's like, thousands of miles away. And the whole idea is that they're wishing that person was there, and then that person is there, and then all of a sudden you get a little bit of a kick in the tail. They're not actually there, and it's all a dream kind of thing. And funnily enough, I was on another radio show last week, and the girl actually, who facilitates me talking to the DJ and everything on a live interview, she was listening to it, and she said, wow, I can see a fantastic video for this one somewhere along the line. And it's a love story. It's a love story, but it's a sad love story because the two people are thousands of miles apart. And it's all about, basically, I wish you were here. I wish you were here with me. So yeah, go for it. It's a fairly moody one, and enjoy.
Okay, Here is Here by Shaun C. Bryant.
By my side.
Yeah, I think out of the 3 that we've played, that one's my personal favorite. I really like that one.
It's come out nice. And again, I can only thank Adam, one, for making me sound good. And he came up with the arrangement for that. And that's literally come from a 2 or 3 chords on an acoustic all the way through to that. And he's produced it brilliantly. And it's a great track. And I really like it. It's one of the things I like about the music is the way that you can portray a mood or a feeling or an emotion. And if you compare that to something like Midnight in Paris, which I said is very jangly, bit of pop rock there, gets your toes tapping. If you're sitting in traffic, you tap your fingers on the wheel kind of thing. Whereas here is one of those ones, as the lady at the other radio station said, there's a good video there. And you could, if you got the right person involved, have a pretty impressive video to that song. It's just one of those ones. I mean, I do a lot of traveling for my job and everything. And you can be away from your loved ones quite often. And I'm talking, quite literally thousands of miles away because I go over to West Coast USA quite a lot for work. And, it's a good 5,500 miles. And so you do miss people, just the simple things in life, like having a cup of coffee in the morning or, sitting there talking about how your day went when you get home from work and all that kind of thing. And the one thing I would like to hope with all of my music is somebody listens to it and relates it to something in their lives and kind of says, wow, I get that. I know exactly how he feels, if you see what I mean. And here is one of those songs that I just hope people listen to and kind of think about the people they're missing at that particular point in time, because that's what it's all about. That song is all about, as the title says, here, I want you here. And that's how it works. And that's one of the major benefits that I have being a songwriter, is I have the ability to be somewhat journalistic and create things that hopefully touch on people's feelings and emotions. I hope so, anyway.
Well, Shaun, we have run out of time. I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. Can you give out your best site where people can find you on the internet? I know everybody's got
Absolutely
35 sites, but just give us one that everybody can find you.
Well, I mean, you'll find me on Facebook, no problem at all. Just look up Shaun C. Bryant. There's a Shaun C. Bryant profile. There's also a Shaun C. Bryant page on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Tumblr. And obviously there's the website as well, which is www.ShaunCBryant.com. And that's SHAUN and then a C and then Bryant, BRYANT.
Okay, Shaun, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was nice talking to you. Good luck with all the music. Any touring, any plans for touring in the near future?
Hoping to have some gigs lined up towards September, October time this year. I'm working closely with a few people in the UK to do some London dates, hopefully. And that'll probably tie in with some sort of launch party for the album, I hope. And yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. Do appreciate it. It's always good to, get chatting about music. And if you ever do want to do the Dis Kanye show, please let me know. I'll be there at the door.
I'll keep that on the short list. Okay, Shaun, take care.
Take it easy, Douglas. Thank you. Bye now.
Okay, well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guest, Shaun C. Bryant. Thank you, Shaun, for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to talk to you. This is Douglas Coleman saying goodbye.